Resident Evil 3 begins with the heroine, OG and unlocking extraordinaire, Jill Valentine, as she is comically blown out of her apartment and embarks on a 3-day quest to escape Raccoon City. Along the way, she encounters some familiar faces such as Brad Vickers and Marvin Branagh. She also meets some new faces such as the spicy UBCS Carlos Oliveira.
My name's Carlos.
And his extremely sus teammate Nikolai Genoveva.
Wait!
I had no choice. He was about to turn into a zombie.
Your tricks are changing in iconic locations as the Raccoon City Police Department, Raccoon Uptown, Raccoon Downtown, Raccoon Sewers, and the Raccoon General Hospital. Resident Evil 3 is a masterclass in suspense building, atmosphere creating, and anxiety inducing.
No.
A slow, quiet build-up of the title character, Nemesis.
We're both gonna die.
As the player goes the entirety of the prologue through isolated city streets full of decay and tragedy, barely meeting a living soul. Okay, so Resident Evil 3 Nemesis may not have been the best game in the series. It was, however, different. In a good way, as any good sequel should be. Sure, it was still set in Raccoon City, featured returning characters, and concluded with a similar destruction as Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2. More of the same. And Resident Evil 3 Remake is more of the same as Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 7. However, the addition of Nemesis pumps some well-deserved adrenaline into a series that began with slow, quiet gameplay.
Oh my god.
And then took a more cinematic approach. It was a natural progression for the series at the time. Resident Evil 3 Remake starts with a 30-minute cutscene. Not this cutscene, this cutscene. Sure, there's some level of interaction here and there, but for all intents and purposes, this is a 30-minute unskippable cutscene. There's no exploration, barely some sightseeing, so this could have been a cutscene. It starts off with news reporting that serves to foreshadow in real-life current events. And an event that, in my opinion, we could still be using to enjoy this game had it not been a 2-hour tops game with little to no replayability. Seriously, I haven't 100% completed a game since Modern Warfare 2 in 2009. And that took me longer than a week or two to complete. Resident Evil 3 kicks off with a bang, or punches with a bang, or kicks off with a punch. Kick punches us into a world of obligatory cutscene participation. It would be bearable if we could skip the entirety of the prologue and future playthroughs, but it's cutscene after cutscene after cutscene. And unnecessary cutscenes. We gloss over important events from OG Nemesis, meet the UBCS.
Nice to meet you, Jill.
And finally begin the game proper. Our first task is to restore power to the railway system to the electrical substation while avoiding rapey bugs. Once the power is back online, we encounter Nemesis for the first fight run as we run to input the correct round to the traffic control system, and finally return to the Red Zone station. A second fight run, a very short trip fighting blind love trip into Raccoon City sewer system, and a fire extension later, we encounter our first boss battle. The first fight from which we cannot simply run. Well, we can run, but in order to succeed and progress, we must fight. And the aftermath of the fight knocks us right back down to the downtown. At least it's a different area.
Don't do anything stupid.
A short fight run later, and we're back to familiar grounds. But at least now we can open new doors and locks, jump on a train, and be on our merry way. Nemesis ambushes the train that she, half of the UBCS, and other Raccoonites, Raccoonians? Raccoons? Raccoons are used for transform, killing presumably everybody except for Nikolai and of course Jill. Secondary protagonist, hired hand, and all-around Hordog, Carlos Oliveira takes over the narrative to the Raccoon Police Station to rescue umbrella scientist Nathaniel Park, who isn't there. It's actually at the Raccoon General Hospital. Back to Jill. A brisk stroll by the Circular River, and we arrive at the iconic St. Michael's Clock Tower for our second boss battle with Nemesis. The previous boss battle and follow-up damage have taken the effect of Nemesis and forced mutation to make him resemble a cross between the Xenomorph and a typical house cat. Jill defeats the Nemesis, but comes out infected with the T-Virus. Carlos takes over once again, this time with the mission to save Jill by locating Bard at the Raccoon General Hospital, now known as Spencer Memorial Hospital. After one of the better set pieces in the game, we discover Bard dead. Presumably murdered.
Bard's dead. He's been shot.
Okay, definitely murdered.
There's gotta be a computer, right?
T, there's something real nasty in here. I don't know what it is.
Something nasty.
and administer Jill with an experimental vaccine that very luckily turns out to be A-OK. Building the Raccoon City will be purified by dawn.
The missile strike on Raccoon City.
Carlos goes off on his own to find a second vaccine tablet.
Crazy bastard.
Jill is far behind.
I'm going after him.
Making her way beneath the hospital and into the next facility. After making a few discoveries about Raccoon City, Spencer Memorial, and Umbrella Pharmaceuticals, we manufacture a vaccine sample and make our way out of the nest tube. Before heading out, we finish Nemesis for our final two battles with the Forever Alone meme. The first is a clock tower battle with a few zombies sprinkled in, the second is a test of accuracy and pattern recognition.
Did you? How about some more?
Yeah, boy! Yeah, boy! After the biggest missed opportunity in the game,
Next time, take the hit.
oh no. Rewind. You can do a lot better than that, girl.
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
Perfection.
We blow a new orifice from Nemesis and one final anticlimactic encounter with Nikolai, and boom.
So long, RC.
Clearly, I expected more from the Sentry. Much more. Especially after Resident Evil 2 Remake's reception. That enters another topic entirely, yet it showed certain negative signs. Just as both Scenario B seem rushed in Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 3 Remake seems rushed at times. Mainly throughout. There's no doubt that Resident Evil 3 Remake is visually beautiful. Jill, Carlos, Nemesis, Raccoon City, and every other asset looks stunning through the RE engine. Most of the mechanics from Resident Evil 2 Remake return with new inclusions such as Jill's dodge and Carlos' shoulder check. My biggest complaint has to be that the game doesn't live up to its full potential. It's underwhelming. We've seen plenty of justified complaints that the game is way too short. I, however, feel that 2 hours is good for an adrenaline pumping, fast-paced, non-stop, get the hell out of the city entry. How can 2 hours be enough to tell a story and yet be underwhelming? There just isn't much to offer in terms of replayability, exploration, innovation. This does feel like Resident Evil 2 Remake DLC, an extended Mercenaries run if you will, which I have no problem with. It just seems as though Capcom missed one hell of an opportunity to expand the franchise. How so, you didn't ask? Let me explain. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis included the live selection feature, a gimmick that no doubt was implemented to add some replayability to an already short title. However, there's much potential in the idea of alternating routes. Let's say that during the prologue, not answering the phone prevents a Nemesis ambush. Or you decide to exit the building through the rear. Now you have an entirely different route to take to get to wherever. Let's say one scenario leads to a similar route to Resident Evil 3 Nemesis that sees Jill isolated and almost a few steps behind Brad, eventually catching up to him and encountering the Nemesis outside of the RPD. Brad being the literal poster child of stars would justify why he's pursued by Nemesis first. Different actions have the effect of redirecting you through a different route, encountering characters in different locations and during different events. Maybe one route sees Jill assisting in the evacuation of civilians until Nemesis destroys a subway car. One scenario has Jill traversing the RPD. Maybe one route can see Jill and scenario going through the Raccoon Zoo. And maybe one can see her going through the clock tower. In the same vein, imagine a scenario where you meet Kendall while evacuating the city through the subway, where suspicions arise regarding Star's appearance.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
And Jill has a choice to make. Step up and defend them, knowing full well what the T-Virus does to a person, which can have the added bonus of Jill surpassing her own trauma, or side with the mob and ostracize the Kendos. Either way, Kendall leaves the subway and returns to his shop,
Just give us some privacy.
where we encounter him in Resident Evil 2. And we could still be able to encounter him later on in this scenario, or a different scenario. Another route could have Jill encounter frantic police officers at the RPD sheltering civilians, with Marvin leading the attempts. One objective could be to locate Chief Irons. Keep in mind that this is still a day before the events of Resident Evil 2 Remake, so no one fully understands the gravity of the situation yet. Maybe in this scenario we can also find clues of sabotage and some answers as to how and why the RPD fell. Also why so many officers were at the RPD and not assisting with the evacuation efforts, and why the UBCS showed up so quickly. This scenario could also add more STARS members and teams. We know about Alpha Team and Bravo Team, but maybe there were more. Perhaps just one more. A newly founded Charlie Team. After all, we do have an unidentified STARS members in the STARS photo. This could have been a deceased or a previous member whom Rebecca replaced. Let's say that those recruitment posters have paid off. Either way, there's a good reason to add more STARS members for Nemesis to kill, because as it stands, Emmy's KD as far as his primary objective is concerned, is 1, and his only kill was, well...
Oh, no.
And that wasn't even Emmy's kill in this game. This scenario would of course be immensely more impactful from Jill's point of view as a Raccoon City police officer and citizen. Fighting alongside her fellow officers as she watches them fall one by one as they try to protect their city, try to protect themselves, try to protect one another. She witnesses her comrades fall to zombies, fall to Cerberus, fall to Lickers, and some even fall to the Nemesis who's rampaging throughout the station as he should have been. Can you imagine fighting alongside these officers right before the ultimate demise instead of just kind of witnessing what happens to them? Nest 2 is another area that can benefit from expansion. The Nest and Resident Evil 2 Remake offer more in exploration and suspense, so this would again be more of the same. However, if a final lab must be included, then there's no reason not to add alternate routes to the Nest 2 that ultimately lead to the final boss battles. And there's no reason not to make Nest 2 just Nest 1, simply in a different area. Alternating branches also allows for the expansion of Raccoon City. I'm sure I don't speak for myself when I say the Raccoon City is as much a character as Jill, Chris, Claire, and Leon. There's endless lore in RC, and it always seemed interesting to come across the remains of other would-be survivors. Reading the diaries, journals, and other excerpts from fallen officers, UBCS operatives, and civilians really fleshes out the events leading up to and developing throughout Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. I've spent plenty of time delving into these anecdotes. Different scenarios also opens the door for alternating pacing experiences. i.e., Resident Evil 3 Nemesis' slow and atmospheric build-up, Remake's immediate thrust into action, and other in-betweens. Certain events can remain the same throughout, such as a trek to the RPD and Jill's infection by Nemesis. Others can be choice exclusive, such as encountering Kendo, or traversing the Raccoon Zoo and encountering a variety of enemy types. This of course can lead to alternate endings, more replayability, and even with a short runtime, could have been a game that offered new experiences to this day. And let's not even get into what the possibility of an open-world Raccoon City could mean for multiplayer DLC. Yes, I know about this garbage, and no, that's not what I meant. With an expanded Raccoon City and modernized assets, Capcom could have offered Operation Raccoon City and Outbreak-style gameplay, but with updated mechanics, of course, as multiplayer DLC. I know we as gamers get Call of Duty fatigue, but hear me out. We could have had solo or quad battle royale or special ops modes with objectives to complete as we battle Resident Evil Rogues Gallery, as well as other players and teams. So yes, kinda like this, but you know, better. Capcom had over 2 decades of prep time with follow-up lore and novels to remake this title. If this is a remake, then make it a remake. It's okay to change a few things here and there, so long as the overall goal is to improve upon the already established story. They scatter maps of Raccoon City throughout the game, all over the marketing, and as part of the collector's edition as if to tease an open-world exploration. Especially with the potential of what could have been with Nemesis chasing Jill throughout Raccoon City. This is what we could have had Capcom focused as much effort into story and gameplay as they did on the graphics. But even with all its flaws, Resident Evil holds a very special place in my heart. I felt more accomplished when my 10-year-old sister finished Resident Evil 2 Remake on her own than when I first finished a Resident Evil entry on my own over 20 years ago. Anyway, I gotta go, love you, bye!